Welcome back to Two Old Guys Reselling Podcast. No longer reselling. I'm never going to forget to do that right. I'm never going to remember to do that right. Today is not the day for me to be talking, apparently. Goodness gracious. Well, two old guys living up to the name, hanging
That's
out,
it.
forgetting everything we know, being cool.
Yeah,
What's up, man?
not much. How's it going? Made me think I'm gonna go ahead and just drop this on you. So, talking about being old, it's with all the aches and pains that I've been having lately. I'm thinking I might have that new Chinese disease. You ever
Mm-hmm.
heard of it?
I don't know.
Young no mo.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Oh
You
man,
know,
yeah.
and in my old age, I've actually started something. Some folks do it, most notably celebrities and things like that. I've been writing an autobiography. So the other day, I accidentally glued myself to my autobiography, and nobody believes me. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Help us, Lord.
Yeah. Oh, that's just one
Yeah,
I found while
yeah.
something else, and I thought that was pretty good. I'd take it.
Another thing you have to worry about
Uh,
when you're getting old is having multiple functions happen at one time, like when you sneeze and fart at the same time. It's like your body taking a screenshot.
uh, okay.
All right.
Wow, what a start! What a start!
Let's go for it.
Oh,
It's
we
good
have
to be here, man. Good to be
oh
here.
we have really got off on the wrong foot. Oh man, no, it's been a good day so far. It's been a kind of a whirlwind of a day. It's been busy, been a busy week. Just continuation of everything busy for the last
Yeah,
few years. Yeah, we're doing good,
that's right.
hanging in there.
That's right.
Um,
Hey, it's just that reselling life, We
that's it.
it's funny to me how life is. I don't know if anybody else if this is how they experience it, but you know, I feel like all of my adult life has been like, you're plotting the days ahead of you. Think, when I get X accomplished, then there'll be time for this, or it'll slow down a little, and then there'll be time for that. But it's like it never slows down. The more time and space you're able to create for yourself, it feels like the more things come along to take up that space. Whether it's things that we create for ourselves, things that others have, or just life in general. There's always something, the unexpected things too that happen. So, you do best, I think, just to kind of accept that, it's ebbs and flows. Take things as they come, and don't get too worked up about it either way. And just it's just life, man. It's the course of living. But yeah, it's been a good week though. We're definitely thankful and appreciative of the good things that we have in our lives, because we've had a lot of good. We sometimes want to dwell on all the challenges, but we sure have a lot of blessings too. So
For sure, for sure. One of the greatest blessings resellers have is it is yard sale season, right? I mean, it's
yeah,
pretty much yard sale season now.
uh,
It's normally not till April, but it's been unusually warm for about a week
mm,
and a half now. And me and Tanya went to, I don't know, probably like 5 Saturday, something like that. And she come home. Now, listen, this wasn't reselling day. She come home with a patio set and a table for the house, like a hallway table. And Logan got him a John boat and trailer. And I bought pretty much nothing to sell. I think actually I did walk away with one bag. This is funny how this works, right? Like you don't think about stuff all the time. I'm not always got my best reseller cap on, if you will. So, for those of you that have listened to me and you know that I sell cross stitches, and we've talked about this before, even here,
mm,
uh, some of them can be really good. And there's one that's the gold collection, and those are really good. Like they're superb. Like some of them get over $100 for a cross stitch kit. And it don't even have floss, or it's just the pattern, right? That's just a pattern, $100.
mm.
Well, I found one in a bag or in a tote, and I went in there, and this was an estate sale. So most of the time they know what they got, and they're going to be like, oh, 25, 35, $45. And I walk in there, I said, how much are your cross stitches? She said, dollar. I'm like, ooh. So I went back and I got two out just kind of combing through. As I'm walking back through, she said, "If you want to buy that whole tote, I'll sell it all to you for $5." I'm like, "Sold." And I
Wow.
in there, pay for it, and we bought a few other things. And when I get home, I'm kind of looking through it. There was actually another gold collection in there, but it was a mini, and
Mhm.
it's worth like $25. So the big one's worth about 75, the little one's worth about 25. There's another one worth about 20, and I got a ton of needles and little tools and stuff. Probably at least $200 worth more, in the back and the tote that was full of stuff. And I was like, sometimes you just gotta pay better attention because I was going to walk away and leave the rest of it.
Now, were those the kits that have the thread and everything with them, or is that just the patterns?
The gold collection, I don't think they make the entire kit. I think they just make the
Just the pattern.
patterns.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. My friend or our friends from church, her and her cousin, they have a YouTube channel doing cross stitching, and
Really?
they do really good. Like that's their biggest pastime and hobby on top of that.
Wow.
But I know from her and talking with her that, like you said, those the gold series, some of those she's got several that are the $100 or more if you find them. But now she finds them at
Mhm.
yard sales, thrift stores, things like that. And she
Mhm.
said they're just outrageous. The ones that are not made anymore, outrageously expensive. If
Yes,
you
they are.
actually have to go and buy them through a secondary market, like on eBay or something like that.
Yes,
So
they
she's
are.
always on the lookout to add to her collection. She's got a huge collection. She's got a lot of value. Just put it that way. If she
Man.
come up needing money, she could list a bunch of that stuff and get in
Oh,
better shape pretty quick.
for sure.
So
When I see them, I paid up for those too. They was the last ones I bought was two sisters that were probably like in their mid 70s, and they had all their crafting stuff out, and I seen them. They had like four of the gold collection dimensions. That's the brand. I was trying to think
yeah,
of the brand a minute
yeah.
ago, and I just asked them. They had like $10 a piece on them, and I think that was some of the first ones I bought, and I wasn't sure if they was good. And I said, if I buy all four of them, you make a deal, and they took 30 for all four, and I'm like, well,
Wow.
I'll do that. And then when I got home and started looking them up, there's like $500 worth of stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of feel bad for doing,
Yeah.
but that was at that time I wasn't super familiar. But they had so much stuff. Just and estate sales are a pretty good place to find some of that stuff.
Yeah.
If you do find somebody that had any crafting type stuff, you are more likely to run into some of that. But yeah,
Exactly.
be on the lookout for the Dimensions Gold Collection. And like I said, I got, gosh, I don't know, $5 probably going to turn into about 300 or
Oh
400
yeah. I
like that.
usually buy if they're cheap, like on the cross stitch the little books, the patterns that whether it's the
Mhm.
individual ones. I know a lot of them, are just the individual pattern and it's just a
Yeah,
single fold out. But they even the little magazines and stuff that have two or three patterns
yeah,
in the magazine, the older ones especially. Holiday ones are really popular.
yeah,
Christmas, Halloween, things like that. But I usually always pick them up if it's just like a bulk of them and I can get them for a few dollars. And then you can lot them up 10, 12 of those magazines, 15 or 20 at a time, sell them for $25, $30. I mean, they sell pretty good. They're not all like those gold editions that's going to be like huge
right,
money, but you just never know when you're going to have one that's rare, even if it's not that. You never know when you're going to have something desirable. And
oh,
like I said, you definitely just in lotting it together, there's a lot of money to be made off of that stuff if you'll price it just price it low. I mean, if you're getting a
yeah,
bunch of it for a few dollars, 20 or $25 for sets, kind of match them up, whether
yep,
it's cottage core type stuff or like I said, Americana or holiday, just try to group it together with similar things and it moves pretty good when you can find it.
does for sure. I've sold quite a few of them. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't put a number on it. I've at least sold 50 to 100 cross stitch kits in the last,
Yeah.
5 years probably. And the thing about it is you find them all the time. So
Mhm.
it's become one of my favorite things because most of the time they fall right down into an envelope and they're good to
Yep.
go. It's one of the easiest things to ship. Um, that kind of makes me think. Question I wanted to ask you on the reselling side of the podcast here is if you had to say what was your biggest mistake or your biggest regret about your business, what would that be?
I mean, I have a hard time with definitive statements like that, where you have to nail just one thing down. It's terms of mistake. I would just with very little thought, probably go with, I'm not going to give just one, but I'll just 4 quick things that I think are easy traps or mistakes to make, especially starting out, things you learn as you go. If you don't see it early enough to know better when you're getting started. But I think, the death pile thing can definitely be an issue. I know someone say, oh, it's not a death pile, it's a money pile. Well, it may be a money pile, but when the pile is really big because you oversource, it can be really intimidating, overwhelming. There
And
are times that I really do still contemplate. And I mean, I'm thankful for the inventory I have at this point. Sometimes I think, well, maybe God foresaw the state I would be in, because you talk about yard sales and all I get to do is sit here and drool and look at the Facebook listings and don't really get to go. I mean, just being honest, that's the way it is. I'm here entering the second year that I thought I'd be able to go all the time, and really hit those things up. And I'm still, in a position where I can't really go and take advantage of it. But because I overbought early on so much, I mean, really badly, I just overpurchased inventory. It's a good problem for me right now, but still so much of it is mediocre. It's not horrible stuff. It's just like, if that's all you have, it's hard to get. And that kind of gets to the second one, the listing issue. I mean, we all know how much we need to list, and I really need to list more. From the beginning, I should have been listing more. I should have been listing more consistently. And if I had done that more consistently throughout the time that I've been reselling, I wouldn't have quite the extensive, hoard of stuff that I've got right now to go through. It's what it feels like. It gets to feeling like a burden, like I'd be better off sometimes to comb through it and separate between the stuff that I know I really don't need to just chunk and just make a big old donation pile, load it up on a trailer, go get rid of it, and kind of hit the reset button on a large majority of the stuff. Because you learn so much about what to buy and what not to buy. And you realize, and this gets to the third one, which is the margins. You realize that your margins on a lot of the stuff that you buy early on and the stuff that tends to accumulate because you pass over it, the margins are so small that sometimes it's really just not a good use of your time. You say, well, you've got money invested in it, and you do. But sometimes you lose money a second time, even though you're going to lose money if you just go donate it. You're losing money a second time by putting the time into listing a bunch of that stuff that the profit margin is really small on, and it takes up a lot of your time. And then, then the prospects of selling it, because maybe, it was during that learning phase. Like I said, a lot of that accumulator has for me, and I haven't did the purge that a lot of resellers have probably done at some point after the first 3 or 4 years. And I just think I'm nearing that point. That's a mistake I made early on. I think, and I advised my son when he was looking at reselling and starting to do some, that, don't get in too big a hurry to buy a bunch of stuff. Really focus on buying good things. You've got a job, you don't have to buy a ton of stuff to list. Just if you find something great, if you find something that's $1 that you can sell for 40, buy it. Find something for $5 that you can sell for $30 or $40, buy it. If you're having to spend $10, you're going to sell it for 25, leave it. Don't buy it. You're not being pressured to have to make that kind of a margin, that little bitty margin. So just don't do it. Just don't get in that habit, because before long, you'll accumulate a lot of stuff that you spent too much on that really isn't worth your time to list, because there's not enough margin to be made on it. And maybe you find yourself, well, you're just trying to recoup the old investment. But then if it's stuff that sells slow, it still kind of locks you into this burden or overburden of listed inventory, even that's really hard to get out of your store. And that can impact the health of your store overall, because all those metrics that get measured about how long your items are listed, how fast stuff moves through your store, all that stuff affects just kind of that organic traffic that eBay will send your way. The healthier your store is without promotions, without running huge markdowns and all that stuff, the better items you sell that move. I really feel like, in the end, I don't have any, data to back this up, but I just see the difference in how my store operates right now, where I feel like it's way more healthy than where it was operating 2 years ago, when I had more listings, but it wasn't as healthy in its listings.
Yeah.
And I think that has, and then I'm giving a long answer, I guess. The last thing I would say, and this is something I'm still dealing with, I've been converting things over, but I wish I would have started out having a better inventory system and grown it as I went, instead of having to backtrack. I kind of did that with my clothes pretty quickly. I've seen how that could get really difficult in a hurry, the clothes listings that I have, because it's so similar, and in me putting them into clear polys, from the start as I would list them. So I saw the need to do that pretty quickly. But a lot of my hard goods and things. And I still, I have boxes that are just toys, boxes that are just, a couple boxes that are shoes or tubs, totes that are just purses or bags, backpacks, things like that, where it's all just that type of item in them. And I know to go there to look, but there's still 3 tubs. And
Yeah.
so when you're trying to eliminate wasted time, sometimes it'd be nice to know not to pull those first, when you hit it the first time, it's great. But when you dig through 2 big tubs full of stuff and you have to go to the third one, it's like, I wish I'd
Yep.
known if this tub A, B, or C.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
a simple thing to do. But it's something that it's kind of overwhelming to look at, 6, 7, 800 listings and say, I should go back in and put a SKU in for those and reorganize them into, an inventory system. You just kind of get to wanting to sell that stuff and do your new stuff in the inventory system. But like I said, that's something I wish I would have done. So, I think you said mistake and regret. I think that's probably that classifies as both, the inventory kind of mistake and a regret at the start.
I did that for a little while where I was just, I wasn't as big. I had like, I don't know, 500 listings. And I was just on my shelves, kind of piling stuff, sitting it in neatly. But I was saying, I can remember where I've got stuff and it would sell. And I'd go down through there and I'd be like, this is back here because I could remember.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got bigger and bigger and bigger, I'm like, there's no way. I'm not going to be able to remember no 2,000 listings worth of where I put it. So I started like probably within the first, I don't know, couple of months, 3 months, something like that. First, I used boxes instead of these totes, and it was just simple, basic, like A1, 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next shelf would be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I kept that that's just my inventory system. You could be, whatever you want it to be. Um, it don't really matter. Just a way for you to remember and have it logged. But one thing about the inventory system, and I'm a nerd, yeah, you know how nerdy I am with this. To me, it's like exciting because it really does save you time. When you start doing the actual numbers on
Yeah.
time, if I can pull up on my computer 20 orders, and I can even sort them by SKU. Well, 4 of them's in A1. I walk over there, get A1, sit down, boom, 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 put it back, move on. If I have to search for all that stuff, that could take me an hour to find everything. And now I've got it all out in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. So I'm a big proponent of the organization side of thing. Now, on my biggest regret would probably be that I didn't educate myself better sooner
Yeah.
because okay, I've been selling on eBay since I was 18, old enough to have an account. I've not been full time that whole time, but if I found something like what you mentioned, hey, I found a $5 video game that thing sells for $50 on eBay, I'd pick it up, I'd bring it home, and I'd throw it on eBay. That's just the way I done it. And I might sell 4 or 5 things a month. I might sell 10 or 15 things a year. It's
Right.
just the way I done it. Anytime I found a valuable item, I threw it on there. Or if I wanted to get rid of something, I threw it on there, whatever. Um, but looking back, because I've been yard selling for 20 years, me and my wife went yard selling. We'd always go yard selling. At one point, I had like 100 PlayStation 2 games in the back room of our house with a big screen TV that I never played. I just collected them because I was a PlayStation guy, and I had tons of them that I would buy for $1 or $2 a piece, and they was just
Yeah.
tons of them. Well, I still was a reseller at heart because once I had that big collection piled up, a guy showed a little bit of interest, and I said, "Well, I'd sell it all if you were interested." He said, "Well, how much?" And this has been 15 years ago, probably maybe a little longer. I said, "I'd take 200 for all of it," and he's like, "Okay, I'll buy that," or 150 or something like that. And I probably had $80 in it or something. So reseller at heart, but now knowing what I know now and still yet not knowing everything, I wish I would have done a little bit more research,
Yeah.
because I don't know how much stuff I've passed over that probably I could have gone $20 here, $50 there, $100 there. How much money I've left on the table over the years is probably a headache like we've never had before, just
Right.
to think about. So that would be my biggest regret is that I didn't put I don't, it's like kind of like a 2020 vision. Wish I
Yeah.
knew now what I knew,
Yeah.
knew then what I know now. So it's not something I was even thinking about, but that would be
Yeah.
my thing. I wish I could go back and tell the old me, pay attention,
Yeah.
that, learn about this. And just because of the potential of what it might be.
Right. And I can definitely see that. I I would say probably there's always more to learn about what to buy and not to buy. Now it
Mm,
even changes some through time, so it's not like it's
does.
100% static. There's some things that are pretty consistent, but there's ebbs and flows within that. Video games are always there's always a market, but which ones are the most marketable, which systems are most in
Right.
demand, even in the vintage stuff, it kind of changes with each generation that ages and what we grew up with and that kind of thing. But that being said, I guess what I was going to say is I feel like I spent a lot of time educating myself on that part. Like I felt like I am picking and then also knowing how to research items on the spot. Like I was growing that pretty fast, but it was that operational side that I probably was really lacking in the things I talked about. Like after opening up the actual store, it's those
Mhm.
operational things that you do your best to prepare yourself, but I was just not as ready as I wish. Now that I look back, I wish I would have been, because it's one thing to know you can buy something to make money off of it. It's another thing to be disciplined enough to know it's not a good thing to buy and try to make money off of.
Absolutely.
Because making a few dollars off of it isn't necessarily always, I mean, not that we want to lose money or not make money, but it's just not always just being able to make a few dollars isn't always a good thing.
Mhm.
That's not enough to make it worth the buy every time. And
Absolutely.
that part hurt me a lot, and I'm still reaping the consequences of that because I'm staring at tubs of stuff that I know I need to list, but at the same time, I don't see the value in using my time to list it to a degree.
Mhm.
I even There's good things in some of it, like I'm talking about, say on the clothing side, especially because I did focus a lot on clothing early on. I know there's some gems in there, but even the time that it takes to go through a big tub that's got
Mhm.
maybe 150 items in it, and I mean, I got several of those tubs, and to the time that you have to spend to go back through and separate between, what are you going to list, what are you not going to list. It's just
Mhm.
there's a lot, man, when it comes to efficiency, just a lot of lost effort,
Yeah.
a lot because of having to redo and do over. And I've done a lot of that already, but that's part of it too. You got to take what you learn, reinvest the knowledge, not just the time. And when you're spending that second round of time, you're really just investing the new knowledge that you have a second time and trying to do things better and make things better for the years to come or the months to come. And it's worth it. It's just like you said, it's a headache. It's a big mental obstacle to get over, to be able to get there.
It is. It is. I do the same thing. Uh, I've got I've yet to uncover everything where I bought out that aquarium like
Yeah.
I bought, oh gosh, there's like 4 totes of stuff. And it's got to be some of the next totes coming up. I know it has to be because there's like 20 more of the 50-gallon. They're not 50-gallon. They're like 35-gallon totes or something. But they're big old totes, and I know there's bound to be a lot of that coming, and it's going to be not my favorite thing,
Yeah.
because it's going to be a lot of the same type stuff,
Mhm.
and that is very real. Like people say, "Oh, you get over it." There ain't no mental strain to that. If you stare at the same stuff every day, all day, every day, all day, every day, all day, you're going to get tired of looking at it, and you're going to not want to list it. It is a very real
Yeah.
strain.
And you'll hear people say, buy what you love so that you're listing something you enjoy listing. And I get that. But now, it's a tug of war, because if you can find an endless supply of that type of item, every time you go out, you more than you can keep listed and always have plenty. That's one thing. But
Yep.
if you're really relying on eBay or any other platform right through reselling as a significant contribution to your income or as a primary income in your household, then the pressure to just find things that make good money outweighs just I only want to buy things that I really like. And that's the thing with those buys, like the aquarium buy. You make those buys because there's such an immense amount of profit. But I think too, sometimes if you've got plenty of inventory to list besides that, sometimes if it's something that I'm really, really just not going to want to do, then it can still become a burden because even though there's tons of profit in it, it sets so long, you know,
Mhm.
that I always pick other stuff over it. It's like, was it really worth it? Because there's one thing if it's an item you buy that you don't like, that you buy for $5, you know you're going to list for 100 and sell it. It's another thing if it's a bunch of quantity listings, a bunch of bulk of stuff that's like not as big that you just don't, like you said, you don't get excited about it. It's not in your wheelhouse. And for some, whatever reason, you know, it's just like I said, it just becomes this mental block. It's like I just don't
Mhm.
want to mess with it. And so again, just the fact that money can be made on it doesn't always make it a wise decision for you, a wise decision for me. And you have to really kind of learn yourself. I think that's
Yep.
another thing. You can't really know yourself well enough to know when to and when not to pull the trigger on certain buys like that. Because I definitely advocate bulk buys. I think that's one of the best ways to make money
Yep.
selling online. But you got to be very wary of just being too aggressive if it's something that you're not going to be excited about listing, because thousands of something, you know, a couple thousand items of something you don't like is different from picking up 3 at the yard sale.
It is.
Yeah.
It most definitely is. I give you a good example. I've got these little Christmas ornaments. I think I told you about these. They're just little bells, you know,
Yeah.
they're small, and, I had them all scattered out on my table trying to write down because 'cause they're all personalized names, and I was separating, like, Mary, you know, here's a bag of Mary, here's a bag of John, whatever,
Yeah.
and, well, there was so many of them, I couldn't get it finished, so I had to throw them back in the bag and set them to the side. So all that time I just spent, I've got to pull them back out and sort them back out. And it's like, how much am I actually going to make on these things? Is it going to be worth it? Now, at the end of the day, I think yes, because there's like a 200 of them or something. And if you could sell them even for like 9.99, you're going to make $5 a piece on them, and you know that's $1,000 if you sell them all. Is it going to sell? Is it going to make me $1,000 this year? Probably over the course of like 5 years, it's going to make me $1,000. So you have to do that
Yeah.
mental math. You know, like, is it really worth me to put? Let's say it takes 8 hours to sort them, picture them, and throw them on there. Do I want to do that? And do I want to hold up a tote? It's gonna be just a tote all by itself for 5 years to make $1,000. Now, I went ahead and made the decision I did, but that may not be the right decision for
Yeah.
everybody. I've got enough room I can do that. Somebody else may say, "Man, I got to have that tote," you know, and that totally makes sense. So I try to look at it from different
Right.
perspectives. If you've got a warehouse of 1,000 square feet, by all means, you got plenty of
Yeah.
room. Go for it. If you've got a bedroom of 150 square feet, I'd probably wait. You know, so it's just it's
Turnover is really important when you have limited
it
space.
it is very
Yeah.
important. And I think we fall into that trap too. Like, I know I do when I'm at a yard sale, especially if I go to like what we're about to talk about, these neighborhood sales here in a minute. But if I go to one of those and I've invested my day, my gas, my time, my effort into that yard sale, I feel like I need to come home with something. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
like I have to have some
Yeah.
wins down here. So when the day starts waxing old, you're like, man, I'm gonna have to buy something, you know. Like, it's just the mentality of I can't leave here empty handed. And I have left with some not so great buys before
Yeah.
because I felt like I had to buy something.
It's a trap.
And it's more true that you're probably better off walking away,
Yeah.
coming home empty handed than you are coming home with bad stuff.
Well, because at the end of the day, I mean, we've all got more to do, not just with our online business, but just more to do generally than we have time to get done, right?
Right.
Be
Yeah.
it business stuff, home stuff, family stuff, just responsibilities. And so when we tie ourselves to what begins to look like a boat anchor, right? That's dragging the ground, and we can't get to nothing else because and it just ruins our efficiency. It's like, so you work really hard all day long one day, right? To list a bunch of stuff that sells for mediocre money that you overspend on because you have to have something, like you said. And in reality, what you did is you cost yourself money because in the amount of time you spent to get that stuff listed, the max profit you can make off of it is so small compared to
Mhm.
good inventory that you could have been listing that you may still have in a pile somewhere or whatever. So whenever it does come up its turn, right, in the rotation, it's actually probably costing you money rather than making you money. It's costing you a
Yep.
second time. You say, well, how's that possible if you're selling it for more than you paid? Because you're limiting how much you can make that day. That day,
Mhm.
your profitability for that day when you're listing is diminished greatly. As long as your overall supply of inventory is going to be there, it's better not to have those days. That's the dilemma I have with a lot of the old
Yep.
stuff that's accumulated. Um, but at the same time, when you can't get out and source, if I get down to where that's all I have, at least I have something to list. And I've even thought about doing bulk, like just listing some some large, not, just like, I know some people that go on eBay and like they won't even sort by size. They'll do like 10 pair of Levi's, and
Yeah.
just put a price on them that just moves them, just gets them going. And
Yep.
that's something to think about. I think about those ornaments with you though, like that's tough, because if those don't move as fast as you want them to, even that 5-year plan, like if they don't move like you want them to, that's with them being monogrammed or having names on them. That's something you don't have the option to say I'll just sell 10 of them at a time, unless you were going to
Oh,
try to market them to another eBay reseller, that might want
man.
to try their hand at listing them like you have. But
I
anyway,
might actually do that.
hey,
I've thought of, just because of the time. I mean, it's so overwhelming on the
yeah,
time. Like I said, there's probably two, maybe even 300 pieces to it. And somebody else may be like, "Hey, I don't have good stuff here. I'd give you $100 for it." Like
right.
there's definitely the thought of just recoup your money and get away from it over make the full profit and
Oh,
let
look,
somebody else make the full profit. There's
I hate that. I hate that "why did I do this" feeling that I get after. I don't
Mhm.
get that after every buy, There more often than not, the things that I buy, I'm really pleased that I bought the things that I bought. But I
Mhm.
hate when it comes time and there's something that's been staring at me like it's got eyeballs just focused on me all the time. And I keep looking at it, it keeps looking at me, and I just keep thinking, yeah, I mean, I might have paid $5. It might be something that sells for 50 or 60, but I just don't want to mess with it. I don't want to mess with cleaning it. I don't want to mess with having to do the photos. I don't want to mess with having to ship it. I mean, it's got all these, it's like every negative box for me as a reseller on some items is checked,
Yep.
other than the fact that it will make money, right? That's the only thing. And it's like, and that should be enough most of the time to motivate us to do something about it. But sometimes it's just not enough to get us
Yep.
going. And
It
I
is.
think we
It's
all
true.
deal with that from time to time. And those items, man, I just look at them. I think, why did I do this? I knew better. I knew when I picked it up, like, there's too much money to be made here to leave this behind. But I
Yeah.
know while I'm doing it that if I get this, I'm just going to leave it sitting there. I'm not going to
Yeah.
want to mess with it. And
Mhm.
so, I think the strategy of picking out one or two items like that, uh, if not every day, then maybe 5 a week, one each day, that you're listed,
Mhm.
is a really good strategy, because, you beat yourself into submission to do one of them every day. You
Yeah.
eventually work that list down to where it's not so many staring at you. But that's, it's easy to say that, but still getting yourself to do it is still harder. Like people use that as a strategy or say that's a great strategy, but holding myself accountable to that, not always the easiest thing to do.
Definitely not. I've walked away from a lot of stuff this last year, the course of the last year and the start of this year. I've walked away from a lot of stuff just mainly because of the shipping aspect of it. That's one of the biggest negative boxes for me. It's like golf clubs. I used to be the biggest golf. Well, I won't say the biggest, but I was way into golf clubs. I'd have 100 of them at a time, in my store or whatever, more. And with people figuring out pricing and with postage going up and boxes going up, the margins have become so hard to manage on those. You have to sell a $50 golf club to make 20 bucks. And it's like, I don't want to do that or make 25 bucks, and it's, I don't want to fool with it because they're not easy to store and, they're not super easy to take pictures of. So it's just, I'm being more picky. I've actually sold a lot more small stuff in this last
Hmm.
6 months than I've ever sold. I used to have a ton of electronics in my shed. I had one rack, actually three racks, like just like these down the wall. At the top, I had them stood up down through there, and there would be probably 20 or 30 VCR, DVD, radio players, stereo units, just whatever. and I would sell one every week or two. And I mean, I could keep it moving pretty fast, but the shipping again has become so
Yeah.
overbearing and overwhelming. And if I had to pay full price for paper, like I've got a pretty good supply on paper. If I had to pay $30 or $40 for a roll of that paper, like some people do, I couldn't ship that stuff. There is no way I could ship that
Yeah.
stuff. And I do buy it now. I've got one in my store right now that I found nothing on eBay, nothing anywhere on the internet except where it used to be for sale at the original retailer, and it sold for like $799. And I was like, well, I've got like the only one pretty much available right now on the internet, unless you want to go to a specialty website that sells old stuff like that. And I was like, I'm just going to price it high. Now, stuff like that, I don't care to take the risk on shipping that. If I pay $50 to ship it, I've got plenty of margin. But if I pay $50 to ship something that I paid 25 for and it's going to make 100, there's just nothing there.
Right.
There's
Right.
nothing left. So I
Yeah.
totally understand those issues. And, it also depends on where you're at, what you can buy. There's a lot of factors to that, but that's definitely, I've been moving away from some of that type of stuff for sure.
Yeah. Talking about paper, I just want to throw this in there. This is something interesting that happened for me this week. Um, so I listed this. Let me just back up a little bit. So when I was in college at community college, I went 2 years community college before I transferred on when I was getting my degree, and it was just local here in Fayette, about 20 miles from my house. And I worked in the media center. I started out like it was part of my work study placements. I had 2 or 3 different placements for work study, and then they had what they called foundation jobs with the media center where you could work extended hours. And so
Mhm.
they offered me that. And so I ended up working a lot of hours in the library. And then I worked at the sawmill too, here locally. So I had a lot of different things going on. But while I was there, they went through and they did a purge of their old magazines. They had this back room that was just full of magazines, like from the last, 6, 7, 8 years. I say old, not like they were vintage at that time, right? They were just magazines from the 90s. And
Yeah.
so, I was they told me if I wanted any of it, I was welcome to it. It was just going to get thrown away. And so,
Wow.
I hauled 3 or 4 boxes full of magazines home. I mean, from anything from Sports Illustrated, right, to like Time
Mhm.
and Newsweek, U.S. News and World Report, all these different publications that they had at the school at the time. And what I did is I pulled, especially like say with Sports Illustrated, I pulled specifically like, Kobe Bryant covers, Michael Jordan covers,
Mhm.
Shaquille O'Neal covers, Tiger Woods covers. I really focused on a lot of that. And then I pulled some others that, sometimes you think they're going to be great and they're not. But I got like Wayne Gretzky, if he was on covers,
Mm.
I really, even though I didn't know a lot, I guess, really at the time, like I do now as much, I still had enough understanding to know that all time greats and Hall of Famers were, and generational talents and anything were
Mhm.
great. And so they also had covers of all of those as well, that were from Time and Newsweek and all that stuff. And so, like, this was like, say, for Tiger Woods. So, for his first 3 or 4 years on tour, like I pulled all of the covers that he made. He made a lot of magazine covers. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I kept all that stuff. And over the years, I would feel bad about having so many boxes of magazines. So I'd get them out and I'd go through them, and I'd cull some of it, and I'd throw some of
Yeah.
it out, carry it down and donate it or whatever. And so I got it down. I only had like 2 smaller boxes full. And so the other day when I'd cleaned up and did some straightening up in the office here, I decided that I would go back through them and I was just going to get rid of them. Just going to sell them, put them on eBay. And so I went through and I sorted through them, and I made different lots. I made like Sports Illustrateds are kind of a dime a dozen. They're not hard to
Yeah.
find, those from those years. But there is, I've learned a lot. It's what I'm getting at. I've learned a lot in going through them. If you lot them together, you can make a little money if you get them cheap. I found that. And these were free. Of course, I've had them a long time, but even buying them, I think there's some money to be made if you can get like a collection pretty cheap. Um, that being said, I made a lot of Jordans. I made a lot of that was all Lakers stuff. It's just Lakers in general. Magic, Magic, Kobe, Shaq from those
Mhm.
championship years. And then, of course, the end of Magic's era. So I put all that stuff together. I had my miscellaneous lot, just different things that I'd kind of lotted them together in different ways. My Michael Jordan lot had like 10 magazines in it. Okay. And I knew that it probably was one of the more valuable, even though none of them individually were worth a lot. Just putting them all together, I was expecting to get about $35 or $40 for the 10 magazines. Well, I listed this and I had looked several up, of the different ones, thinking this one might be valuable. This one might be. I mean, like I had a Harry Potter when Harry Potter first came out, the time when it was like the cover of Time and it would burst on the scene. It was really popular. I kept a lot of stuff like that too. I had one of The Rock, when he was debuting in WWE. So I had a lot of cool stuff too, just other kind of off the wall stuff. But I put this lot together. It goes up and I forget what I was doing. I think I was in Barry, like in the store picking up some groceries. And my phone, I could hear the sound like it was like the message, from eBay, like when you're getting a message from a buyer. And it went off like 4 times, and I was like, I hate, how it is. Like, I don't want to go, examine it to see, like had to look at one today. Is it 100% cotton or does it have some stretch? I was like, that's the kind of questions I get. I'm like, geez, just, you're going to ask me all these questions, go through all this trouble, and you're still not going to buy it. So why are you bothering me? But he was asking, he had looked at this lot of magazines. Caleb, I had one in it that was, so I looked up a lot of them individually, thinking, well, this one might be, that might be. I finally just come to the conclusion after I looked up probably 30 different SIs and various magazines that they were all going to be worth no more than $4 to $5 a piece. And most of the time there was one for free shipping on there at that price, because somebody can sell it and ship it for nothing. But as a lot, I could make money on them. So I just gave up looking up individuals. Well, this guy messaged, hey, I'm interested in just one of these magazines, wondering if you could tell me this, tell me that, and then finally just said, never mind, I'm just going to go ahead and buy it. And so he bought the Michael Jordan set and followed it up with a message. I just want to let you know that I don't need any of the other ones. If you'll just send me the blue cover with the literacy. So there was one, it was I don't even remember the Junior Scholastic magazines, the Scholastic version.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the 90s, one of them, I don't know if they still make it or not, was called Literacy Cavalcade. And there was this Michael Jordan cover on the and it's just a little thin paper, really low quality, magazine. It's the only one of those that I pulled out of all the magazines I saved. I pulled that one. And it was this really cool shot, like from above, of Michael Jordan going in for a dunk. It's like looking down on his head. I mean, it's just a really interesting cover. It says the only one I want, the light blue Jordan Literacy Cavalcade. He paid the full $40 just for that one magazine. I had just like kind of gotten over the fact, wow, that's awesome, And then I was thinking to myself, wait a minute. Maybe I should have looked that one up. You know how that feeling sinks in.
Yeah.
And then I get a message from this guy. His moniker is literally MJ Mag Covers. That's his screen name.
Oh,
he's like, I noticed this is already sold. He said, and he wasn't trying to buy. He wasn't trying to go backdoor on anybody. He said, please, if you have not shipped it, is there any way you could send me close-ups of the cover? And I answered, sure, So I went in there and laid it out, took a really good close-up of the cover. And he says, I catalog all Michael Jordan media covers, from his entire career. He said, I have never seen this one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. He said, I've never seen this one. He said, he keeps it in eBay, like where he gets alerts. He said, I've never seen this cover in years of watching eBay. He said that this is the first time I've ever seen it. And so I messaged him back because this guy probably knows what he's doing. I said, and the one that bought it, it was a sports shop. I mean, you could tell in the name, like this is someone that's got like a sports shop.
Oh my gosh.
And so I messaged him back. Yeah. And I said, is this something that, I should have known about? Like, is this like something crazy valuable? Or I'm just curious, like I said, I'm not going to change anything. It's already sold. I said, I'm just wanting to know, like how much I should be hanging my head right now, And he messages back and he says, it's really hard to tell. He said, it must be exceedingly rare. He said, because I literally have never seen this cover ever. He said, I don't have it anything, he said, I would have, he said, I obviously would like to have purchased it myself. He said, but honestly, he said, I would assume you could have got $50 just easy, just for that. He said, and if you'd have run it on auction, said, who knows? He said, it's just because it don't come up. Said, you just never know.
Oh,
crazy, And I thought, wow. So it was a $50 or more item by itself, most likely, because it sold within I listed it, left the house, and before I could get back, it was sold. Like, that's one of those things. But only that one magazine out of the lot. So you just keep the other 9. I don't want those. I just want that blue one. So okay. Anyway, so I thought that was a cool story. It's not often that you sell one tiny little magazine, and then it's like, please ship this. Not it wasn't like one of those things where setting you up to get a bad feedback. He just said basically he just didn't want to get wadded up. Like, don't just drop it down in a bubble mailer for me, please. Like, take care of it, put it in a box. I said, I'll take good care of it. Don't worry.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, it might have been
have had
$100 or $200 or $300 magazine on a auction. Who knows?
It really could have been.
But I didn't look that one up. If I would have looked it up and known that there was not one to comp it by, period, in 3 years, I would have probably done an auction on it just to be safe, just to see. But I didn't. It's one of the few that I didn't look up with the Jordan ones, and so there you go.
Oh, that just makes me sick.
It happens.
And I've done the same thing.
It happens.
It does.
But you got to make good. We talked about integrity on our other, part of the podcast a couple weeks ago. And, you'll sometimes wrestle those feelings. I'm not saying, I know there's sellers that have probably canceled sales to redo that stuff. And I'm not going to say that the enemy didn't put that thought in my mind that maybe you should cancel this and just hold off a month or two and then throw it up for an auction and see what happens. But, at the same time that's going on, there's that voice inside that said, that's not right. Yeah. You sold this to this man for this amount. That's what you said you'd take for it. And that's what you're supposed to do. And so that's what you do. Some, I think, sometimes make it sound as if they don't even have that thought. But, I'm just being fully transparent. That thought crossed my mind just like it does a lot of people. That thought comes in, but you wrestle with those sometimes, but right is still right and wrong is still wrong,
Absolutely.
And so, it went out the door for $40. And the way I look at it, I got all that stuff for free, and I sold one magazine already for $40, just one.
You still won. You still won.
Yeah,
I won.
Unless I find out it sold for 10,000, then I'm like,
then you might be a little bit like,
oh man. Yeah.
Oh, so let's read a couple of comments here. You want to?
Let's do it.
I'm going to go with Greeting Grandma. She was commenting about my little accident I had.
Yeah, I read that.
Here. She said, Caleb, you'll understand when we park our vehicle several yards from you, right?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, totally will. Totally understand.
Yeah. Like I told you last week, it seems like based on all the history of the backing into stuff, running over stuff, pulling against stuff, that it's more than just a accident almost. Like it's more like you're accident prone. But, what do I know?
Maybe I need a backup camera. Maybe that's might be a good investment on my part. Oh man. You got one?
Well, I was thinking about Razilla's comment, and I don't want to be, he put it in public, so I guess it's okay to read. It's kind of sad, but he said, before my wife left this world, he said I had to transfer her from Las Vegas to Orange, California for her final cancer treatment. So the daily calls were almost as painful to me as being without her physical touch. She inspired me to no end. Even though I refused to write anything for 5 years after her passing, I kept everything in my head until I was ready to write again. And, he talks a lot about, he writes a lot, writes music and poetry, different things, and, just reading that, if you pay attention to the comments, or if you're familiar with Razilla, he's active on a lot of the resellers channels and stuff, and in the lives. He's a joke a minute a lot of times. He's always very lighthearted. So the really deep, serious comment from him, I just want to say, we've all been there, and I get that. I get that so real. I think it's worked for me. I also try to write. I write songs from time to time. That's something the Lord gave me a long time ago, and I find it both discouraging at times, like he talked about, when things like that happen, but it's also a lot of times been, in the end, the source of the blessing or the inspiration that came for a song. Sometimes for me, I think rather than, I could see how it could happen both ways, but rather than it kind of closing me down, it's the thing that has allowed me to kind of get help, to kind of work through it. It's the way that God has ministered to me, and like I said, allowed me to process it and put, maybe just find meaning in it, when I was having trouble finding it otherwise. But we definitely sympathize with that, man. We all,
absolutely.
My wife's mom is actually having to have a biopsy done this week, on her thyroid. We think everything's okay, but you just never know until you get it back, and cancer and stuff. My dad, that's what he, maybe not directly, but it was a result of his last cancer treatments that he got sick. His immune system was low and wound up passing, from things that he got because of the treatments,
Yeah.
being in the shape he was. It hits us all. But anyway, kind of a somber note, not trying to be somber, but, it's just, I just wanted to recognize that. Thought that was,
Yeah.
really
Absolutely.
good commentary.
Well, before we head out, let's share our sell of the week. We'll end right there.
All right.
If you have a sell of the week, I had a really weird weekend. Like I sold $350, but everything was just bread and butter except for we sold a Star Wars toy lot, like 20 action figures that was basically mostly just, your $3, $4, $5 ones. I just lot them all together, $65, got it out the door. But the rest of it was like 20, 25, 30. I don't think I
Yeah.
went up $35 the rest of the weekend, which is fine. If you sell enough, you can make the same money as if selling 5 big dollar items,
Yeah.
I'm good with that, but it's just kind of a strange weekend.
I'm going to kind of go back just a little bit because those of you listening right now, you don't maybe know our recording schedule, but we're kind of working things out with doing both of them. And we kind of had I guess a bigger gap, even though we haven't missed an episode. We kind of had a little bit of a gap. And so I wanted just to highlight some of these things. I thought it was cool. One of the things that I talked about, how it stares at you, I had a sewing machine, a Singer sewing machine that I had bought. It was a commercial grade one, and it was really heavy, but I got it for like $30. I bought it at a church sale, and it was the lady that had brought it to donate to the sale was there. She said, it works fine. I just never used it. And so I finally listed it and I sold it for $200.
Nice.
So I sold that. I had a Big John camper, vintage camper in the box, like the Mattel. I mean, the box looked, super sharp. It wasn't sun faded. It wasn't water stained or nothing. It was in great shape. Stickers were all good on it. But anyway, it had that, and a bunch of the accessories that it came with were still there. It actually had one of the Big Johns in it as well. One of the figures that it didn't come with, but it was just with that set. I bought that at a yard sale. I think I gave 15 for it. If I remember, it was 15 or 20. It was a toy collector. It was just something that he was purging out of his collection. He got it pretty cheap, selling it pretty cheap. Sold it for $175. And so yeah, and then I sold a Elvis DVD set that I got from my multiple trips, to my one guy. I sold it for $145. It was a 17 disc set. And I sold a Levi's bomber jacket vintage for $75. Danbury Mint Iwo Jima raising the flag for $70. And my favorite sale,
sale, not sales.
Sorry, but I had to tell, this is just cool stuff. Duke Nukem, N64 0 hour. I sold it. I've had it for a while. I probably had it priced just a little high, but it had the booklet and everything with it. It was just in really good shape, super clean, no scratches on the sticker. I mean, it was great color, just super, super good condition. Sold it for $45. I think I had it listed for like $60. I finally just took an offer on it. I had mine priced a little high because I felt like I had the best one available. Honestly, that wasn't in the box. I felt like I had the cleanest, the sharpest, best color. And so I was kind of shooting for, that person that wanted a super high quality one, but it's been on there for over a year. So I just said, you know what? We're just going to let it go.
I'm going to go.
Time to say goodbye. Yeah.
Yep. I get that. I do the same thing sometimes. All right. That's some good sales. I'm jealous now for sure.
Well, it was quantity, quality and not quantity that's kept me kind of going the last 2 weeks. But for a while, it was quantity that was helping me. It's been quality the last couple of weeks, which I'll take it however I can get it. I wish I could get both of those going at the same time.
Yeah, don't we all?
Awesome, I need quality and quality.
Quality, quantity, sales. $100 a piece, about 50 of them, please.
Yeah, for real.
Oh, who wouldn't like that? Oh, man.
Or $120 sales. I'd be happy,
Yeah, for sure. So. Absolutely. Well, anything else?
I'm good, brother. I think that's enough. We probably fed them more than they can digest already.
Yeah, probably so. I'm good at eating more than I can digest. Well, I don't know about that. Eating more than I should digest.
Yeah, what did the one? It was an old video that he commented on, but fat rednecks. Yeah, we got called out as fat rednecks.
Yeah, fat redneck.
Just a couple of fat redneck boys.
Yeah. I mean, I can't deny the truth.
What it is, But
that's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to head out.
Sometimes you don't want the obvious pointed out,
That's right. That's right. So we're going to head out. make sure you check us out on Thankful Thursday. This will be out Tuesday. Come back Thursday, Thankful Thursday, and we'll see you guys then. Until next time, we're two old guys and we are out.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.